The Mix 88.5 Property Update, brought to you by the award-winning Tudor Group, developers of Tudor Villas and in the final stages of Tudor Court Condominium, Pratham Nack Soi 2. The Tudor Group, Thai lifestyle, European standards.
Welcome to the Mix 88.5 Property Update on PMTV with my guest as always, Tim Gladwin, all sponsored by the Tudor Group.
The Mix 88.5 Property Update.
So good afternoon and welcome to another Property Update, all sponsored by the Tudor Group. Tudor Court in the last stages of development in Pratham Nack Soi 2, and all sorts of things going on this week, I believe, as Simon has told me. As always, our guest in the studio from Salmons Thailand, Patia at salmonsthailand.com. If you want to get him on email, 038252588 is the phone number. And Tim Gladwin in the studio, as always. Good afternoon, Tim.
Afternoon, Russell.
So how have things been in a strange place that we live in now? Because it has changed over the last couple of weeks.
Very much so. Yeah, it's been hectic, in a word.
Okay.
Lots of people still continuing to come down from Bangkok. We're still getting phone calls, people looking for properties to come and stay in. I was speaking to my friend in Bangkok yesterday, who actually was referring someone over to me, and he was saying that each day he makes it into work, which takes him 2.5 hours each way, because obviously some of the roads are closed, and those roads that are open tend to have a lot of cars parked at the side of them. Every day the water's getting closer to the office. It's just up the road now and approaching quite rapidly.
I think the hard thing is that I've spoken to people in Bangkok that are supposed to be going to work, and because the office is okay. The problem is the office might be okay, but your residence is flooded. So how are you still expected to go into work at that time? I think it's a little bit unfair on some.
Yeah, it's somewhat of an extraordinary situation. And like you say, if you're going home to a flooded house at night, it's not really an environment from which you can prepare yourself for work each day. And you would have thought that employers should probably take that into account, and I suspect that some do, but others are probably minded that they've got to continue at whatever cost.
Yep, and hopefully some of those things will continue and they get out of it shortly, but I do know there's another wave coming sometime soon, and more people that I've spoken to said, yeah, we're deciding either this week or beginning of next to say, right, it's getting closer to us, we're also going to be moving down to Pattaya as well.
Yeah, it really is amazing. I was saying to my friend, surely the situation with respect to the flood should be getting better soon, and he had obviously a lot more information on it than I have, not living in Bangkok and therefore not being threatened directly by it. And he was saying, look, there's water up country over an area the size of Wales at an average depth of 1 metre that's got to pass through Bangkok still. So he said we're a long way from the thing being resolved. We're a long way from it getting better. And like I say, it's actually getting worse right now, not better. So it's obviously a significant problem and a significant issue, and actually a growing one, even though the sense down here, as the logistics of companies get organised and our shortages perhaps get a little bit better, not so bad in terms of being able to get hold of many items. You sort of assume things are getting better, but actually they're not. It's just that people are getting more organised with the problem being established.
Hopefully. So we've sort of hit high season, but we haven't. We're not quite sure, because I think there's obviously some people that are not coming in, so high season may have not got underway yet. But it's a very busy town.
Yeah, it's a really extraordinary situation at the moment. It's very hard to determine exactly what is happening in town, if that's the right way to put it. Amazingly, not only are we very busy with Bangkok residents who are relocating down here and looking for accommodation, but we're really busy with what you might call standard, typical customers as well, looking for places over here, maybe as holiday homes, maybe as places to move to, retirement places, or whatever. We're very busy as well with those kind of customers, which seems at odds with what should be happening, what you would anticipate to be
almost
happening.
a business as usual then.
Well, normally it wouldn't be quite so busy, because even though technically you might argue we've now hit the so-called high season, I think the general perception down here is high season starts from the start of November, which obviously coincides with when the rain typically stops falling here, as India has this year. And the weather obviously is very good, but nevertheless, as we've mentioned previously, the start of the high season is not a lights on, lights off sort of situation. It doesn't suddenly get very, very busy from the last day of October being very, very quiet. October is not as quiet these days as it once was, and November doesn't suddenly change. I think what you tend to find is gradually more and more people arrive till it reaches its peak, typically around the festive period, Christmas, New Year, and then it remains busy, although not quite as busy as the festive period, up until the end of March into April nowadays. So it's normally this gradual process of getting busier. Yet this year, like I say, we have been really very busy with a combination of things. And it is hard to determine exactly what role the exodus from Bangkok is playing and what role tourists, visitors from overseas who would ordinarily be here are contributing to the effect as well. So yeah, it's all sort of guesswork at the moment. Even when you go to Pattaya, we know it's very busy. I'm not sure though how that busyness is constituted. Personally, as much as possible, I'm trying to stay out of Pattaya. If I have to go in, I tend to go in early morning.
Yep, I just try and not go there at all.
Because, the traffic is absolutely horrendous. Just the amount of people here is astonishing.
And it hasn't been helped by the wonderful boys in brown, which we would call them the boys in blue back in the UK, but the boys in the brown uniforms that keep blocking off certain roads and saying, right, now because it's really busy, we're not going to let drive down there or turn right here or turn left there. No, you can't do that anymore, which is madness.
Well, it causes confusion, and confusion then leads to the traffic typically getting more tied up and caught up than it would have done without that confusion. I mean, certainly...
Or as one motorbike taxi told one of the staff yesterday, he says, why are they doing it? It's madness, because now I have to keep filling up petrol a lot more because I'm using a lot more to do the same little journey, but because I've got to go round the houses, I now need more petrol in the bike to do those journeys. So it's causing more problems. So if the little guy on a motorbike can understand that, why can't our boys in brown?
Certainly, some of the diversions that I've seen, I'm lost when it comes to identifying the logic of them. It seems very strange. I'm sure there is a logic at work somewhere, but I can't see what it is. But it is an extraordinary situation, and I guess one that calls for extraordinary measures. Certainly, some estimates that are flying around suggest that as many as 800,000 people from Bangkok are currently in Pattaya. And while that sounds somewhat of an unbelievable figure, I personally wouldn't dismiss it out of hand, because there are quite so many people here, and it's not a case of people just coming down and staying in hotels and renting condos and houses. It's more than that. Obviously, I think most people who live here in their village, they will find that their neighbours have family and friends from Bangkok staying with them. Houses that are normally empty or owned by Bangkok residents are now full of people, not just the family that own it, but their friends and family, presumably. It's something that I've never seen before.
Say that that might be a big figure, but I think it actually, looking at the amount of people in town and looking at the amount of people that need to get out of Bangkok, that may be quite a low estimate.
Yeah, I certainly wouldn't dismiss it. I mean, obviously, it's got to be guesswork. There's no way that I'm aware of that you can actually count or accurately estimate how many people are here, because, like I say, they're not all staying in hotels, they're not all renting accommodation. They're here staying in all sorts of different places. But the town is just so incredibly busy. Wherever you go, whatever time of day, there are an awful lot more vehicles around than you would ordinarily find. Now, like I say, I tend to go into Pattaya early morning, but even then, even very early morning, it's still very busy.
Yeah.
So there's serious numbers of people here, and the slightly concerning thing is, as we said a minute ago, these are figures that are only going to grow. We are still getting the same level of inquiries and phone calls about short-term accommodation. We still have a few condos left, but the houses, decent houses rentable for a short period, we're pretty much close to being all out. We've got one or two left perhaps, but they're just going so quickly.
Is that right the way across the board now, from the cheap end right up to the expensive stuff? It just doesn't matter now. It's a case of whatever is there, I will take it.
Well, to an extent, although you do need to bear in mind, of course, that particularly with houses, a lot of landlords won't consider short-term rentals, particularly at this time of the year. This is the high season we're entering now, and they see this as their opportunity to find a tenant for 6 or 12 months. So the danger, of course, is if they then accept someone for 1 or 2 months, they're missing a big chunk of the high season when they could potentially find someone who's going to stay for an awful lot longer and thus be a far better deal for them. So it's not like all the houses are full. It's more a case of those that are available for short-term rentals, the vast majority of them have now been taken.
Yeah, I think it's also a case of what people should look at is a bird in the hand is better than 2 in the bush, or the other way around, isn't it? And at the same time, surely you should be, let's say, a little bit of a good Samaritan and help some of these people that are in some dire situations. I actually saw a video of a friend of mine that said, look, this is my house currently today. And it was a bit of a sad, sorry state. It wasn't hugely inundated with water, but it didn't matter. Even just a foot of water through the entire house has wrecked it, basically. The house is useless.
Absolutely. You can't stay in there because this is not clean water we're talking about. No. There's all sorts of waterborne pathogens and illnesses that you can catch. Obviously, dysentery is a very common result of flooding. This is a nasty, nasty environment to be in. If there's flood water there, you've got to get out. Now, like you say, you would hope that the vast majority of people will do what they can to help, and if that means renting your house out to some people who are in a desperate situation, then that's doing your little bit. No one's asking you to take a deal at a rent that's not a good one. Far from it. In fact, I think most people can get a little bit more than they would ordinarily get, and still consider that they're acting reasonably. Because as we said last week, if you rent a place on the basis of a 12-month contract at, say, 30,000 baht per month, it's entirely normal for that to go up by perhaps 25% when you're renting for a short term. That's not cheating anyone or being unreasonable. Long before the floods ever came, those landlords that do offer the places for both long and short term, they've always had different rates for the different types of contracts,
which is understandable.
Yeah, and it's entirely right. Because obviously a 12-month contract is a far more comfortable thing for a landlord, something he would far sooner have. And of course, if he is doing it on short-term rentals, 1-2 months, there'll typically be bigger gaps when the place is not rented.
Yeah.
And so his overall income for the year, in order to get the same level that he would get from having a 12-month contract, he has to have a higher per month rate for the shorter terms.
It's the ones that are looking to double their prices. I've seen a couple of those around town that were last week they were 20,000, this week they're 40,000, because I can take advantage and I can charge that because someone is desperate and needs to pay it. We did look at a couple of those bad things last week. This week I just want to have a look at a couple of good things, because all the profiteering going on. Some of the good thing, seeing that folks in Bangkok with the water filters, that sort of filtration system they've got in stock or in the house or in their office, they've now started to fill bottles and put them outside of their properties and saying, well, look, here is clean water, take it if you need it, which I think is very nice. That's some of the good parts that are going on.
Yeah, indeed. And that shouldn't come as any great surprise, because I've always felt that one of the attractions of Thai society is the community spirit that tends to exist. I think when we were young in the UK, there was much more community spirit than there is these days. The Silver Jubilee, there'll be street parties and you knew all your neighbours. When you go back to the UK these days, it's very rare for people to know the neighbours. There doesn't seem to be that sense of helping out your neighbour. It's all me, take care of myself. But here in Thailand, if you ever see a car accident, there's lots of Thais that will stop and help out, and they're not looking for anything. They're just trying to do their neighbour give them a helping hand. Certainly I know my ex-wife had a motorcycle accident once, and the guy stopped, took her to hospital, which was probably 15-20 kilometres away, left her in hospital, went and got the motorbike, drove that in the back of his pickup and dropped it off at the hospital, didn't even leave his name or card. It was just a good Samaritan act. And I think here in Thailand, actually, obviously not everybody is the same, but an awful lot of people do have that community spirit. They help out. The first thought is to help rather than, to necessarily do what's best for them.
Yeah, which is nice. Now, hopefully there's going to be enough groceries and the things to go around, because Starbucks are now struggling with their spoons and their other bits. Swenson's can only give you just basic ice cream instead of all the toppings, the other bits and pieces. And bottled water, still very hard to find, although you can still get it in places. So I'm hoping that continues, that will improve, as you've said a little bit earlier on. Some of the shelves now do seem to be getting some of the things back. Hopefully we can manage to sustain the extra 800,000 or plus people that are going to be here.
Yeah, I mean, certainly my experience has been that the situation has improved over the last week. A simple example, next door to my office in the 7-Eleven, you can now get not only drinking water, but actually some of the better drinking water for the first time in, I'm thinking it's probably 3 weeks.
So you're buying your favourite one now again?
I am. They'll only let me buy 3 at a time, but they're in very small bottles. But nevertheless, if they're there, there's no great need to stock up. And hopefully that's an attitude that everyone will take, because I think the shortages are often caused by this panic, and everyone buys far more than they actually need. And then more people panic. So when they see them available, they buy too many.
And then someone does go short.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And so probably the biggest part of the problem is the panic. You've got people out there, I'm sure, who have got literally hundreds of bottles of water that they bought as soon as the issue arose, and that they wouldn't use them if this went on for 2 years.
Yeah.
Whereas if everyone just took what they needed, the chances are there wouldn't be any kind of issue at all. But panic is a terrible human trait,
yes.
I suppose. Yeah, and it does cause these sorts of problems at times.
Now, I've been asked, and I'm sure you've been asked as well, people saying, should we come down to Paddy? And my parents calling up and saying, should we come over? We're booked on a holiday at the end of the month. Should we come over? How are we going to survive? Well, if you're down in this area, I think it's still fairly okay.
Yeah, absolutely. I think day-to-day life continues very much as normal, save that it's a bit like it is during the Christmas week here, with just an awful lot of people around. But as long as the fact that the city is very busy isn't going to bother you, then I don't see any reason at all not for coming. You have to say restaurants, bars, I've not been aware of any problems with supply. Like I said a minute ago, the more staple items that were short on the shelves, bread, milk, those sorts of things, now seem to be finding their way back to the shelves. You don't necessarily get all the different brands that you could get normally, but nevertheless, there aren't what I would consider to be shortages that you would worry about anymore. Obviously, the floods are still going, but it seems that since they've hit Bangkok, the companies that supply the food items have worked on plans to deal with the situation, and these seem to be now bearing fruit. So I don't see there's any reason at all for not coming here. A few people have indeed asked me this very question, and I said, well, the truth is, the last 2 or 3 weeks the weather's been fantastic. Lots of blue sky, nice warm weather. Town's busy, but I don't think there are any direct effects of the flooding down here.
And of course, if you're just flying into Suvarnabhumi and then coming down here, you're also away from all of the problems with the floods and Bangkok and the rest of it. As long, I would say to anyone that is going to come down, as long as you've pre-booked and you've got your hotel reservation sorted out or your accommodation organised, then fine, no problem, just come on down as per normal. There is no real hardship of being here, there's no problems of being here, so just plan the trip as normal and fly into the airport, come down here. But yes, do make sure that you have got some pre-booked accommodation, otherwise that is going to be your main hardship.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think, that being said, as long as you're not looking for 20 hotel rooms, I think you're generally okay. Obviously, there are lots of good websites nowadays where you can book hotel accommodation at good prices and get instant confirmation. So as long as you do that, I don't think there's any reason at all not to come.
You're watching the Mix 88.5 Property Update on PMTV. We'll be back in a sec.
The Mix 88.5 Property Update, brought to you by the award-winning Tudor Group, developers of Tudor Villas and in the final stages of Tudor Court Condominium, Pratumnak Soi 2. The Tudor Group. Thai lifestyle, European standards. The Mix 88.5 Property Update, brought to you by the award-winning Tudor Group, developers of Tudor villas and in the final stages of Tudor Court Condominium, Pratam Nak Soi 2. The Tudor Group, Thai lifestyle, European standards.
Now, they tell me after meeting Simon at the Lighthouse over the weekend, he says that the scaffolding is coming down, all things are going ahead, and lots of action there. So if you want to go and see that and see the quality of the build before it all gets covered up with the paintwork and the decoration, now is the time to get down there and see their showrooms and see what's happening there. So, other changes in the market? Is it still the same as we've reported over the last several months now, that people are looking for the one-bedroom, smaller condo market, or are things changing at all? Is that still the same direction to go in?
No, I think it's fair to say that over the last week or two, for the first time in a long time, we've seen more interest in what you might term more luxury, more expensive properties, particularly houses. Obviously, we've spoken on a number of occasions how the market, the busy sector of the market, has been predominantly for small one-bedroom condos and studios, typically being bought off plan. However, we have, like I say, for the first time, I would guess probably in around 3 years, seen not only ourselves, but some other deals that I've been aware of that have taken place that people have told me about. These luxury houses that have been on the market for a while, a few of them have started moving. Now, it could easily be a blip. And these things, we've talked about blips in the past, and they do tend to happen, and it doesn't necessarily mean any change or significant change has happened in the market. It's just, these things happen sometimes. But nevertheless, there's been enough interest to make me sit up and take notice. I think for an awful long time now, going back the 3 years or so to the start of the credit crisis, the global credit crisis, it's been hard if you've had a house that's priced at perhaps 5, maybe 7 million baht or more, irrespective of how good a deal it is. It may be the best deal in the world, and we've spoken about that house at Phoenix, for example, that you can get, I think, for 6.5 million baht now, that was 20 million baht. A gorgeous house, and it just hasn't sold. And that's indicative of the fact that it's not the value for money that the house offers. It's just that there have been a shortage of people with more than 5 or 7 million baht in their pockets looking to buy houses here. Yeah. So, it does make you take notice when a few deals for houses of more than 5, 7, and in some cases 20 million baht take place. And this has been happening recently. So, you do sort of notice it. You do take note. But you do also bear in mind that it could just be, like I say, a blip. The fact that the market is busy now, there are quite a few people around buying. You never know what's going to happen next week, next month, next year. But certainly, I think it's fair to say that it's positive. Yeah. It's interesting, and it's something to keep an eye on to see how things go, and will this continue over the next weeks, months, and year, or will it prove that it was just a temporary blip? I'm very interested, but along with the various other factors, the fact that the market has been very busy, notwithstanding the floods and obviously the overall situation in Thailand right now, it's more fuel on the fire. There are, I think, quite a few good reasons now for being optimistic about the state of the market, and how that will proceed, we can't be sure, but I think the signs are more positive than they've been for some time.
And that you're going to put down to confidence back in the market, or just suddenly people are going, well, actually, I do now have that sort of amount I can invest, rather than the smaller 1, 2, 3 million baht. I'm not worried about spending more.
Yeah, it's hard to say with any degree of certainty, obviously, but clearly the situation in the West is still very tough. the problems in the Eurozone, sovereign debt crisis seems to be getting forever worse. And I suppose you might therefore argue maybe it's an element of the change is that people are giving up on Europe and moving over here, something we've discussed as a possibility a few times. But the other thing that makes that sort of springs to mind, we've talked on several occasions saying that the baht is strong, stronger than it was, but that this is now normal. This is what it was before the Asian economic crisis in 1997, and it's not going to be the case where the pound goes back to 70 baht to the pound, and the dollar to the levels it was at, and the euro at the levels that it was at. So maybe now,
people are accepting that, and they're just deciding that, okay, fine, it's not going to change, so whatever, I'll just invest.
Yeah, maybe they're just getting used to it. Maybe now people have finally got to the stage where they're comfortable that they get roughly 50 baht to the pound if they're lucky. And they get around 30 baht to the dollar. And maybe they've now accepted that as the reality, and that it's not a temporary fall in the value of the foreign currencies, and they've said, well, finally, that's what it is. So now I value property based on that, rather than what they've done for a few years, since it was 68, 70 to the pound and the equivalents, where they've been so slow to adjust. They've been valuing everything as if it will go back to 68, 70,
which it won't.
But not in the foreseeable future.
I think the only one that may go that way is obviously the euro, but that's not a case of the baht weakening. That's going to be the euro weakening, and that might go around and get silly numbers of baht to euro.
Yeah, I mean, you really don't know what's going to happen with the euro right now, but it probably is not the worst idea in the world if you're holding a lot of euro to maybe shift it. Yeah, because obviously there must be the potential for it simply to collapse. And I say that without being an expert, but just all the news. If 1 minute it's Greece and Ireland and Portugal, next it's Spain and Italy. There aren't many big countries left, and so it seems that Europe is in a hell of a state, and who knows where it all will end. But like I say, there does now finally seem to be some kind of an appreciation that this is where we're at with the currencies, and this is, it might, like you say, the baht may get even stronger against some currencies, something we've obviously discussed on a number of occasions as well. But it's unlikely that the pound, the dollar, the euro are suddenly going to become so incredibly popular that they become an awful lot more stronger as against the baht again.
Yeah, and if you're listening to the Business Daily, you see that they are talking about investing into Ethiopia now, as well as being out here in Asia. There are some good places to be in. Now, if you've been picking up your copy of Pattaya Mail, this week came out with another real estate magazine with all sorts of good little bits and pieces in there. Plenty of news of what's going on in town with the condos and the launches of the Vision, the Amazon, the Waterfront. What was the other one there? The Atlantis. They're all there in the Pattaya Mail, which is that real estate monthly that came out last week. Now, currency-wise, then it's not going to go up to 70 for the pound. It's not going to go up to 50 for the dollar. It's still pretty much stable, and not much has happened this week at all in the currency market. From last week on the pound at 49.3087, it's 49.34, so no real change there. The dollar has dropped just a tiny little bit from 30.87 to 30.65. That's probably because of someone was feeling up the wrong person, and that person is now slated to become the next president. It could be as simple as that.
Yeah, I mean, the reality is that none of the currencies have really moved, and in some ways, maybe that's supportive of what we were just saying. The currencies seem to have reached the sort of level where there isn't a great deal of movement. If it's gone up by 0.4 or 5 these days, we say that's a big move. Obviously, when it dropped from 70 down to 46 or whatever, that's a significant move. But it does seem to have settled down, and maybe that's why people are accepting them as where they are, being where they're going to stay.
Yep. Okay, the Aussie one is the only one we don't know about because it's up and down like you know what. 31.74 this week. It dropped a little bit from 31.9 last week. And the euro seems to have gained a little bit, 42.4 as opposed to 42.3 last week. So your 2 million baht condo this week, if you're going to buy it in US dollars, will cost you 65,221. In pounds, it cost you 40,514 pounds for a 2 million baht condo at Tudor Court. And the euro, it will cost you 47,152, which is still reasonable sort of fees if you're buying a nice little place here in town. Whichever you know, buying yourself a house or a condo, 40 grand back in the UK, it's going to get you nothing at all, is it? Still a garden shed with possibly an outside loo,
If you're lucky. If you're lucky.
All right, now before we get on to our property of the week this week, Raymond Land are going to be coming in and guesting on the show in the near future, probably next week or the week after, at least sometime soon. And they've asked us to mention that they've got their brand new brand being launched in December.
Yeah, late December apparently. The Hip Residence, or I'm not sure if it's
Now, is that the name of it? Is it going to be called Hip, or is it going to be called a hip name that we're not telling you yet?
I'm not sure. I must confess. It's the Hip brand that they're launching, and I think this is the first of their Hip brand condominiums going to be launched on the site that they have on the side of Pratamnak Hill there.
Yep.
And also, they're now looking for some staff to work down here in Pattaya. Bright, enthusiastic, capable people with a good CV. I think they're looking for people both on the sales side and also on the admin side to deal with CRM, administrative sales contracts, and looking after people who have bought in their developments. I think predominantly we'll be working on the new Hip branded condo, but also on the other projects down here, Zaya and North Point being the ones that they're obviously still selling.
Okay.
They've asked if we could mention that if anyone is interested in applying for these jobs, they should speak to Kun Supaporn. Her mobile number is 089 688 4437, and her email address is supaporn, SUPAPORN, @raymondland.com.
Okay, so if anybody wants that, Superporn at 089 688 4437. Raymond Land looking for staff as they get close towards launching another new condo development in town and their whole new brand, which we'll find out right here on the property update at Mix 88.5. Now, no doubt it'll be in here as well, along with all the others that have been launching over the last few weeks. It seems a busy old time for Pattaya in the property market.
Yeah, no doubt. Obviously a reflection of what we're saying. You know, there are a lot of deals being done, and those deals are encouraging more developers to come to the market, and those developers who are already here in the market to launch more products.
Brilliant. Okay, so what's our property of the week this week then?
Bearing in mind what I was saying about houses, I went to see a really gorgeous property in the Chateaudale Thai Bali development the other day. It's a 4-bedroom, 4-bathroom plus separate maid quarters property, done up to the really very highest of standards. The current owners have done an incredible job, spent an awful lot of money. Probably the nicest European kitchen I've seen, certainly in the last few years. Gorgeous living area, really state-of-the-art stuff, beautifully coordinated, nice big swimming pool outside, very mature tropical garden, big sala to sit in the garden, covered parking, incredibly private, combination of the nature of the houses close by and the mature garden providing, you know, a high degree of privacy. Big master suite with walk-in wardrobes, huge first floor terrace overlooking the pool. Altogether, you know, one of the nicest houses you can imagine seeing. Really beautiful, embracing the outdoor Thai environment. It's the land for the centre of Jomtien, where it's located, in a secure compound, is 120 square watts, and for that location is a big plot.
Yeah.
And actually it's very well utilised, so that you know, there's plenty of storage space. All around the house is done really nicely. Lots of nice sitting areas, decking, covered outdoor sitting areas with fans. Really, really nice. And the price, I think 18.9 million, which for what you're getting is an exceptional deal. And like I say, for anyone who has any doubts about that it's worth their money, they should go and take a look, because this is the kind of property that really will steal your heart away.
Okay, it's always nice to see those properties that manage to put some storage areas in. I know it's one of those sort of things you miss quite a lot on the older houses, or some of the ones that are more boxy, that they forget that we need storage somewhere.
It's a bit of an issue in a lot of houses, and obviously when you're looking around, it's very easy to get lost in how nice something looks and forget about the practicalities of the property. This property both looks gorgeous and has the practical issues addressed.
Okay, good stuff. If you want to contact Tim, 038 252 588 is the phone number for the office. Patia@salmansthailand.com is the email address. As always, thanks, Tim, for coming in. We'll see you same time, same place next week.
Yes, indeed. Thanks, Ross.
You've been watching the Mix 88.5 property update here on PMTV. We'll be back same time, same place next week.
The Mix 88.5 property update, brought to you by the award-winning Tudor Group, developers of Tudor villas and in the final stages of Tudor Court Condominium, Pratam Nak Soi 2. The Tudor Group, Thai lifestyle, European standards.